big question that I already know has a million answers to it based on what I've heard in the other rooms. Can you guys tell me the biggest difference between the first Abigail screenplay you read and what everyone is going to see in the finished film on Friday?
I think the fact that she's a ballerina the whole time.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That feels like the biggest one.
Yeah. I think who ends up the villain in the end?
Who ends up the villain in the end?
Is a big one.
It was a work in progress for a while. We tried a lot of different things. Took a lot of swings.
Yeah, and I think that it's funny. It wasn't because what was in that original draft wasn't great. It felt like for us, that first draft was a crime movie. And I think for us, when we landed on this idea of the ballerina vampire, it just felt like the balance of things had to shift a little bit. And so it was keeping that crime stuff alive, but really injecting more of this insane tone into the movie. Sort of shifted the chess pieces a little bit.
Smart move. I love how hard you lean into that. I have to ask about blood cannons.
Yeah, let's talk about
Can you tell me some lessons learned making the ending of Ready or Not that you found coming in handy when working with blood cannons and bursts like that on Abigail?
I mean, that even with seemingly more time and money, you still only want to do it once.
Yes.
You really only want to do it once. It is like such an undertaking, particularly when you're using as much blood as we're using. There is nothing about it that is easy once the event happens. Like the cleanup, I mean, working in those sets the following day, it was just like, all right, we got to go back to the control room. All right, we got to go back to the library. I mean, it is really prohibitive in a lot of ways to shoot in a scene post those moments. So preparation.
You keep doing that. My dream come true would be some sort of press tour where
we explode you.
I'm not kidding.
I mean, you're sitting against a black backdrop. We could very easily create that effect.
I really wish that could happen. This is a bigger, broader question, not necessarily specific to Abigail, but because a bunch of the actors you've worked with have brought this up about the two of you, they've said repeatedly,
what'd they say?
You love blood. You love blood. So it makes me wonder, on your filmmaking journey, do you remember the specific moment when you said to yourselves, like we love blood in movies and going to the max with it?
That's a really good question. I think it evolved over time. I think when we were doing shorts, on YouTube, we started steering really into taking a step into horror while it was still comedy, and the blood was a fun, and at the time it mattered in a real way. It was very cheap. We could go get a bunch of blood and really just kind of get wild with it.
Effective way to tell a specific story.
I remember doing one short where it was we got a bunch of Little Caesars pizzas and some spaghetti sauce and spaghetti and just mixed it all up, and then that was our zombie guts and stuff, and there's something so tactile about it.
Delicious.
I think we're just and delicious, and you can eat it. And I don't know. I honestly don't know why we're so drawn to it, but we clearly are.
I think that we find that it also in the sort of heightened reality of our movies that a lot of blood, we don't ever want it to feel so real that it feels cruel or mean. That it should always feel like it's the Hollywood version, the absurd version of what you might expect the reality of it to be. And I think that for us it's a little bit of a way for us to just let the audience know that we know it's fucking crazy and to just enjoy the ride.
I feel like you do that. When I was talking to Melissa the other day, and this is going to be a weird way to describe the types of movies you make, but she called them safe films, movies that you can go to the theater and feel safe watching, which is weird with something so blood heavy. But I don't know. I think maybe it's that communal aspect, that joy for people who appreciate that kind of effects work.
Yeah.
Creates that atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a pretty calibrated, the fun is something that we talk about a lot. And when you're dealing with humor and horror, we find that those guardrails are something that we're trying to put in place every moment of the movie. And we shoot a version that could be a straight comedy. We shoot a version that could be that really gruesome, punishing horror movie. And it's our job to cut those things down so that the movie feels like it's got a really nice balance of both. And it's never one so much that it feels like you're not sure what the story or the tone is trying to be.
I think one of the things that we always love is when people tell us later that either, God, that was so much funnier than I expected, or it's actually really fucked up. And you're yeah, it felt safe, but you're also oh, it's gross.
I can tell you, I literally heard the funnier thing in the room while I was waiting to come in. I swear to God.
Fantastic.
So,
we love hearing that.
And I feel like my mom has said all of that. So I brought her to the New York screening. So
did you really?
This movie is Mama Nem's approved. She's a big fan.
Oh, I love that. Is so amazing.
She's a big reason why I'm a horror lover too. So
oh my
she
God,
gets lots of credit. Because I brought up Ready or Not, I'm curious about the answer to this question. In your minds, do you think that Abigail exists in the same cinematic reality as the characters and the situation in Ready or Not?
There is a portrait in the background of one of the scenes of Henry Czerny's.
I mean, it would be a grandfather, a great
grandfather.
Great grandfather.
There is a little bit of a Ready or Not, a tied universe to Ready or Not within the movie.
I love that connectivity there. I have to veer into Ready or Not too, because obviously I read those quotes. You know how much I love.
I don't know what you're talking about, Perri.
I love them. I mean, you said it. They're out there. So one particular thing you two said in those quotes that caught my eye. You said, "However it gets made, and in whatever capacity we're helping to get it made, we are so excited that it's happening." Does that mean there is a possibility you hand the directing reins over to someone new?
I think anything is possible. I don't think that that's a movie that we will stand in the way of in any way. We love what Guy and Ryan designed for the sequel, and it's just one of those that, I mean, that Ready or Not is like one of our true loves, and to have made something that has lasted as long as it has, I think is a huge surprise to us, and then to also, you know, make a movie that for us was like a very closed end experience. To have there be another story to tell in that universe is something that we're so thrilled by the design of that, and we can't wait. We can't wait for it to
chance to get to see Samara doing that again.
So she would be involved.
Oh, I don't know. Spoiler. Who knows?
I was wondering if it's like a direct. You have so many options. Is it a direct sequel? Is it a previous version of a game? Could it take on an anthology format where it's like a completely different, like extended family within the family? There's so many options.
There's so many options. The script they wrote is really great. It is really
and
great.
is going to surprise you.
Okay, I'll take that. I will clip this out so it doesn't spoil it for anybody, but because you brought this up at the beginning of our interview and I'm very curious, who was the original baddie in this movie?
I fucking don't remember.
I think that it was Abigail the whole time.
There was an Abigail. Oh yeah, Abigail got up there.
The team up between Joey and Abigail, to answer your previous question, now that I'm sort of thinking more about it, that was something that was like very, very much the design of later drafts. That the two of them become essentially form an allegiance. That for us was, I think so much of it was born of knowing that Alicia and Melissa were going to bring a real connection and a real empathy to those scenes where they're sitting across from each other. And to start the movie, to start their relationship that way, it felt like the natural thing was to actually justify that connection. To tell the audience that for as many lies as have been told between those characters, that there actually is some truth in how they feel about one another. And that for us, it just felt like the most satisfying payoff.
It was a lot of like, well, what do we want to see? What do we want to see?
Yeah.
What do we want to see? And then, kind of steering towards that.
You nailed it. Although I wouldn't mind seeing alt versions where literally every member of the ensemble ultimately becomes like the Dan Stevens in the end.
Oh my God. The Choose Your Own Adventure
They're all
version.
so good. Like boundless potential with everyone.
Yeah, there's like a mafia version of Abigail.
I would watch that too, honestly.